Okay, everybody that tunes into the weigh-in, listen up. We need to talk. Now, did you get a little bit of like foreboding energy? Like, did you feel like a little bit of malaise? Did you not feel good? That is the worst way in the times that we live in right now, 2019, to start a conversation.
The worst.
Because, like, there's such a negative connotation when you hear "we need to talk." You're like, oh shit, about to break up with me. What did I do? What did I do? Like, you know.
I knew that phrase when I was a young kid. Every time I did something wrong, it was like from my pops or from teachers in school. It's like, we need to talk. Like, or my mom, right? What would I do now? Well, we need to talk. Anyway, I guess it never goes away. But in this year, 2019, this time more than ever, communication breakdown is taking place, and we need to talk.
Is unequivocally important, and for every dynamic and every level.
So true.
I will remember, like, dating girls, having girlfriends, and they'd be like, we need to talk, and I'd automatically, like, my stomach would drop, because I'm just like, oh my God. And, like, here's the problem. It wasn't always bad. It wasn't always, like, terrible, terrible news. Most of the times it was bad. 99% of the time, when somebody's like, we need to talk, is not good news. They're addressing an issue that they don't feel, too good about.
Well, in the old days, I think I always hate to reference and harken back to the old days as if that was like the cure-all, but
no. We
there was a time.
need to hear about the old days.
I know.
If we don't view history, we're destined to repeat it.
Well, you're absolutely right. Well, the reference I'm going to make is we've seen them from some of the movies, and we've seen these things from some of the 50s movies and current contemporary shows that actually, like Mad Men, might show some images of this type of thing. And this is not the chauvinistic stuff of Mad Men that I'm speaking of. It's the after a long days at work at an office, a gentleman or the wife would go home, and you'd have a couple martinis or a couple Manhattans.
Yes.
It really takes the edge off of a long day. If you don't abuse it, it's what today's happy hour is all about. But the key to that situation is, once that happens, the man can actually talk to his wife.
So it's to be a social lubricant.
It is, exactly. It works perfectly, because back then everybody sat around the table more. When dinner was kind of over, the kids went to do their homework, or they went to watch the, Beverly Hillbillies or whatever you watched back
whatever's
then.
on.
And the parents would talk a little bit. The wife would clean up. The husband would help a little bit around with the dishes. And they would say, hey, guess what? What happened at work today? And they would plan their future out, their children, the whole 9 yards. And this is simple. People don't do that anymore at any level.
Yeah, and they definitely need to do it. Communication is key, because I think one of the worst things that you can do in a relationship is have tolerance.
Yeah.
So this is what happens. Once you tolerate something, toleration means that you don't particularly like it, but you're willing to put up with it. And what happens is you start to put up with it, and after a while, it starts to dig into your skin almost. It's like a knife being turned.
That's the tension.
And you start to build a wall of resentment. They're doing this. I don't like them doing it, but I don't want to talk about it because I don't want to argue, but it's making me mad. And then what happens is it starts to build pressure. Then after a while, that pressure becomes so much that you can't deal with it, and you explode.
Oh, yeah.
And once you explode, then you can't really get your point across, because you came through with so much negative anger that the person that you're trying to, get an outcome from is they're unrelenting. They're resistant to whatever you have to say.
You would be seconds away from a major argument at that time, either with a worker, a spouse, a girlfriend.
Definitely.
It's like, we want people to be smarter so that you can actually know how to have conversations. A lot of people just don't understand how to bring conversations along. And again, it's I don't know why we want people to not communicate anymore. I just don't really get it anymore. It's just everything's like a pinball game, it seems like. But the best way to actually learn the best things in life are, if you're friends, or you got family members, your grandparents, whoever it might be, aunts and uncles, even your parents. If you've got people that have been alive, or they're still alive, and they've been great role models for you, that's the secret. Just watch what they do and try to just get that out to people. Like reaching out and just talking to friends, creating conversations, things like that, to bring it out in the open.
No, absolutely. Definitely, you need to embark into to areas of conversation that you don't normally go, so you can expand your point of view, you can expand your mind. Do you think with the rise of social media, and I'll bring up, it's that old chestnut that we're connected, we're more connected, but we communicate less.
Well, it's true. It's absolutely true. But there's more fundamental things going on than just that simple. It seems to me like the people that are having a hard time, moving through these the caustic waters at this time, are maybe the ones that aren't really going to be able to get past the problem they're in. I think people who are looking for the information, who can absorb it, know how to carry on and do the correct things, people are still benefiting extremely a lot from the internet. I don't use it as my source tool, but I use it for backup. I use it for reference, for spot checking, I try to validate everything I look for, and it just spreads my mind into like 15 different, like all these tentacles come out. My brain wants things all over the place.
I understand that completely.
So I don't think it's a total dud.
My frame of thought was going more towards the fact that you can't really emote when it comes to written text or typed text. You can say, I'm upset right now. But with saying that, you can't really emote or describe the level of emotion and the level of intensity that you're getting. You could be like, I'm really upset right now. Or you can be like, I'm really upset right now. Both, hold two different tenors that don't come across on a digital platform. So that's one thing. But going back to like interpersonal, face-to-face, people actually talking in front of each other, why do you think it's such a big deal for people to talk face-to-face? Sometimes I think people just aren't emotionally and psychologically equipped to just talk to another person because they just don't do it.
Well, the people they're talking to also can't carry conversations too. So
as well,
you ever bump into somebody who he was maybe on stage A in comprehension when it comes to like talking.
Okay.
If you try to talk about anything that's even slightly above that, the person doesn't get it, so the conversation dies out.
Yes.
So I can't necessarily talk about the most mundane things in the world sometimes, Or like some people will hit you up with like, did you see that Spider-Man trailer? And the trailer came out like 10 days ago, It's like that's the only thing that person has in their little speed dial.
Yeah.
Right, in their brain, but I'm already like 7 films past that and where that's going.
Yeah.
How do you talk, So
situations like that, it depends, because I'm a guy that's always weighing social capital. So there's some times where like my crossover will be very abrupt, where I'm like, oh yeah, I seen it, that's cool, and I'll go on. And then sometimes I don't feel like holding a conversation, but I'll let them talk, because people need, there's certain things that people need. They need a certain level. And the level changes depending on the person,
like
but they need a certain level of locus of control.
Okay.
They need to feel like I can come talk to people, and people are going to listen to me.
I hear you.
I can make things happen, and they're going to happen because of me. So they feel that control. So they feel like they have control over the world, so the world's not chaotic. And at the same time, people also need to express themselves as human beings. So they need to get out their point of views. So when I know that somebody needs to get that out, and I can read that on them, I can read like the social cues, I just absorb it. And in my mind, I'm like, I don't really want to hear this person talk about this, but I'm just gonna let it slide anyway and give them their due.
Yeah, you can.
And that builds connections, and that makes people more ready to talk to you when you need to talk to them about more serious things.
Yeah, like after 30 seconds or so, when that's moving along, that conversation can actually be fruitful.
Yes,
it might go places. That person might actually click into a higher gear.
Yes,
like a lot of people, they don't know when to bring it out. So maybe things aren't all as lost as we think, but I think people should not still give up the constant need to learn and absorb, and also just understand what people are about, and even understand what your fellow man's about. Even more so, not personally what they're about. Talking to women, what they're really about. They're a delicate informational machine. We're a delicate informational machine. Sometimes these barriers are hard to get through, but talk, man, it just smiles. People just become so much friendly.
And like we've talked about before, it's the level of body language that you give off.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you stiff? Are you combatant? Are you defensive? Because if you give off that level of body language, people are going to regress and not want to talk to you. But if you're more open and receiving, if that's the energy that you're giving out, people are going to want to talk to you.
You ever notice it does happen?
Yeah. If you find yourself in a holding pattern with, a male or female, like you're in a full long-term relationship, you need to address the communication issue immediately. And me personally, I always think it's an issue because I think, when it comes to, the different sexes, that there's always a level of taboo-ness. And I feel like it's a level of taboo-ness because if you're with...
You rock the boat in a relationship, you mean?
Because when you're in a relationship with somebody, there's always the idea of sex coming up. Sure. And sex is not a bad thing, but there's always the idea of that, the woman's giving up her virginity. Where the man can also be giving up his virginity.
Those stigmas are never going to go away.
Yeah, you're not giving up something. You're sharing an experience with somebody that's amazing and beautiful. But even on the aspect of just how people talk to themselves, or how people communicate in general. So, all men are created equal. But you get to a job, you get to the work landscape, and then like you have a boss, or you have a superior, or you have a manager. And all these things, they speak to the idea that this person is more equipped to handle what's going on in this particular situation. So you should look to this person, for insight, advice, and learning and understanding. But that person may not always be the greatest communicator. So like, how do you deal with a boss who can't communicate? Who wants to
first
do
I'm
good?
trying to figure out how the hell did he first get in? How did he get his jobs? The first thing that always crosses my mind.
It could be nepotism.
Yeah,
it could be no one else stepped up to the job, and he was the only one that was willing to go to the next level. It could be a host of things where the person.
Usually, those good bosses will come
qualified.
after the people that the application tells them that person is a good person to work with. Like, I spoke with the Julian fella, say you're at your workplace or myself, and the manager should know who the person is that he needs to refer to when he's having the situation.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been in my place every now and then when we're doing certain projects and things. You see how sometimes it breaks down because some people can't figure it out. I try not to daunt them with anything that's too complicated. Just something within their their work habit, within their wheelhouse there. But a bad manager is one that actually says, well, I'm not going to talk to that guy or that girl, or maybe because he's Hispanic or black, or he's a pudgy white guy with zits or something. But they might be the most genius people in the world. You can't just gravitate towards the guy who looks cool. He's got good small talk, or maybe the girl's pretty. Recipe for disaster.
No.
It does happen.
You definitely
have
to
keep your discussions in order, folks.
You definitely have to look at the whole package, and even if you and to me, the easiest way to do it is to just do it. So when you get into a relationship, you just meet a girl, you just meet a guy, and everything's going good, and all you see is upside. But then you get comfortable. So once you get comfortable, you start to look at the things that might not rate so high on your scale of like things that I like about this person.
You start seeing through the veneer a little bit. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, and it's not a veneer that is generated to be deceitful. It's just there. It just happens because we all put on masks, because we want to present our best selves, but our best selves are not our true selves, because our true selves, all men have feet of clay. So our true selves have the inconsistencies. But to me, I think that you need to be honest and say, hey, I do not know if you can change this about you, but this is something that it unnerves me a little bit. So even if you just address it, there's power in that, where you're telling the female or you're telling the male, this is not making me comfortable, and maybe that person can adjust a little bit to make you just slightly, unburden you, unsaddle you from the negative feelings that you have, but you have to say it. And words are powerful, and I understand the fact that people sometimes want to be hesitant, because you can say I love you to a person, and if they don't feel that way, you're left in a void of uncertainty that you don't want to, you don't want to be in. Or you can tell a person I hate you, and you mean it in the moment, but it's not going to be the long-term feeling. And how do you walk back that statement?
Well, you just got to have confidence in your conversation again. So, I mean, conversation is the key thing we're discussing, and that's the key thing in every aspect of life, from head to toe, no matter what it is. And if you say "I love you," and sometimes it's in the heat of the moment, you're on a date or whatever it might be, and that you say that, you do mean love at that particular specific moment.
Yes.
Because love doesn't just necessarily mean long term or whatever it might be. You're in a loving moment. You're in a Zen moment. You're in a cosmic moment.
Yeah, and we can address this later, but I feel like in a relationship, there's love, there's lust, there's like, and there's hate.
It's true.
Love and hate are they're amplified, they're high amplified emotions, so they come up every now and then, and they pull all your resources, they pull all your agency into that moment, and they leave real fast. But something like, you could like a person for like 30 minutes or 3 hours.
Sure.
Because of what they're doing or the behaviors that they're displaying. So there's always different avenues and there's different levels of like how you feel about a person. But with that, there's a lot of times where you need to just tell that person how you feel. Because sometimes they can't delineate what you're saying or how you feel about them. So you just need to tell them like, Senior, I think you're a phenomenal host on this podcast. I like you a lot, and I appreciate it. I appreciate everything that you do.
Appreciate that. Respect that.
And you may not know that, so you hear it and you're like, oh shit, that's my man. I rocks with him too.
I like it, man. I'm with you. Well, we understand this, so I mean, it comes easier for us.
But and also with the ugly things, there's a lot of ugly things that you don't want to talk about. Maybe somebody's not, holding up, their end of the bargain. They're not pulling their weight. I say address it early. Be very delicate about how because people's emotions, they hold like very, very, as it's a precious commodity. And they don't want to let their emotions out because their emotions are like so ethereal that they're so delicate that they can be destroyed at any moment. So like people want to have like a nice protective like layer around them. So that's why they don't really emote that much.
So as we wrap up this episode, all I wanted to suggest is a couple simple things to do. When you're at work, reach out to somebody, start a simple conversation, and try to take it as far as it can go. You'll make their day. We'll all be happy.
Should we wrap that?
Let's wrap it up, folks. We'll catch you next week. Be good.
Thank you.
That was fun.
That was definitely fun.
I'm thinking,
awesome.
my old, they're the ones that came over in 1915, 1921 to Ellis Island.
And they didn't have to speak any English because,
Correct.
they were already integrated. They were too old to do anything.
But as we were growing older as kids, we were like the fourth generation in the line there.
Yeah.
That was just the weird old grandparents who never spoke English.
Yeah.
I told you the story about the grandfather who the kids in the neighborhood called him the rat killer.
Yeah, you told me that story.
Did we record that?
No, we didn't. But we're gonna save.
We'll save that.
We'll definitely save that because that's an awesome.
Hey, look,
story.
this has been a great episode. I'm really looking forward to doing more on this subject, man.
No, because nostalgia in itself is a time machine, and it allows you to go back. And for a guy like me who lives in the future, getting to take that trip back is amazing. And
it's a
just
total chill down.
Yeah, it's definitely a chill down. And everybody that's listening, please feel free to comment in the comment section about your nostalgic moment, if you have a nostalgic moment, and everybody has.
Give us a moment. If it catches our fancy, we'll talk about it. We'll discuss it if you'd like.
And just in general, if you want us to if you want us to weigh in on anything in particular, just let us know in the comment section or the Facebook page, and we'll definitely do it.